Ladies and gentlemen, here we are again, the ACHL digital event, and we've got a new guest and someone that I've worked with on many an occasion, so I know it's going to be an enjoyable session. I'm talking about Marcel Fujike, okay? And again, I tried that. I hope that's right, Marcel.
It's okay, Chris, thanks.
Yeah, okay. I can tell by the smile it's not right, but I tried my best. So Marcel, it's always great to have you on board. And for everybody listening, Marcel works with Kuehne Nagel, and he's the SVP Products and Development, Global Air Logistics. So Marcel, nice title, my friend. A lot of responsibility and accountability, I'm sure. So thank you firstly for coming on board. And
thanks for having me, Chris. Thank you.
Real pleasure. Now, if I can ask you just very briefly, just to give everybody who's listening, just a little bit of background as to what you do and why you do it and where you do it.
Sure. So I'm based in Schindlegi, which is close to Zurich in Switzerland. And there is where the head office of Kuehne Nagel is located. And within the air logistics team, I'm responsible for more or less everything that is customer facing. So all the products and services we are offering, as well as the innovation and the strategy that we are having and applying in air logistics.
Okay, well that clears that one up. So again, it matches the title, my friend. So and you look as if you're enjoying every minute of it. You don't look stressed in any way or form. So you're either going to have to let me know what the cream is or the secret to that success.
It's living at Lake Zurich, Chris.
Yeah, beautiful, beautiful. Now the theme of the digital event is from crisis to care, and we're also covering genuine collaboration and initiatives. Now, Marcel, we've had many airports, many carriers, many GHAs. We've had IT providers, we've had pooling enablers, we've had all sorts of people on. And now the freight forwarding community now rests on your shoulders. So now what I'd like to ask you is, obviously this crisis has profiled cargo into a level that has not been known, irrespective of what promotion. Everybody now knows how important cargo is. Frontline workers, people who've worked in the hubs that kept aircraft going, and also those that have been involved in loading and unloading the Prater concept as it's known now. It's really boosted everybody's awareness of the importance of cargo. Now, from your specific leadership perspective and also your company, what have been the positive experiences and the learning experiences that you've gained over this last 4, 5, 6 months?
Mm-hmm. Okay, Chris. Yeah. I mean, first of all, of course, whatever you said is absolutely correct, and this is what we felt as well. It was or it still is, an unprecedented situation, and for us it was amazing from the Kuehne Nagel point of view that within 2 days we could switch our entire operations and workforce from working in an office to working from home. We have been quite lucky there because mid of last year we implemented for entire company Zoom. So there was a global rollout. So we had Zoom all on our laptops or mobile working spaces already. So that was a pretty easy shift from office to home, which we would have never expected that it's that easy. And we were always thinking that you need to be in the office, you need to fly around, you need to meet people to keep more or less the business running. And of course, during the last months, we realized, no, you don't need to be in the office. No, you don't need to fly every day from A to B. And it's working in a digital way as well. So I think that was the first learning, a very smooth transition from our pre-COVID working patterns and things we were doing business to the COVID-19 times. The other thing I think that was quite astonishing was the way how our entire industry reacted to these challenges, that we had no passenger planes running any longer, that you only had freighters. There were more or less little freighters left or no capacity left. You only had lanes that were served by these freighters. So you had only limited options. And then responding to the available solutions that were out there and finding then more or other varieties of solutions to still serve the customer in the best possible way. And that was incredible. And I think that stands and speaks for our industry, that I think our people in the industry are so dedicated and they are so much in love with their logistics that they go more than the extra mile to satisfy our customers. It was not only for Kuehne Nagel, but it was, I think, for all the other players as well, that we have seen a real move in our industry to make things happen that I think before or even in the crisis, nobody really thought would be possible.
Yeah.
And that response, I think, was very astonishing, because at the end, I mean, okay, we struggled with all the PPE movements and the capacity being around, but we have to say at the end, we delivered and we somehow made it happen, that the PPE was moving. We made the best out of it. Airlines responded in converting passenger planes into half freighters, or these ghost flights were then running up and down. We found solutions from home to satisfy our clients, and I think our customers were quite happy and were very grateful and flexible as well, that they accepted that we cannot deliver the contracted transit times that were agreed upon, but that we tried our best to at least move the cargo where it had to be.
Exactly. And I think this crisis more than ever, it's shown how genuine collaboration and people being people come up with initiatives for the good of the community. And I think that's been one of the most encouraging, positive things that I've experienced in all the years that I've been in the industry. And it proves that when you're in a crisis, if you have people that care and organizations that care, you can overcome most things.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
I think a lot of respect and recognition for all of the frontline people, those that, you know, that had to have mitigated activities, you know, with face masks, yes, and various other PPE to accommodate loading cargo on the passenger compartments. It's been an incredible job.
Absolutely.
I also think, Marcel, I think we should give a shout out as well, you know, to the likes of EASA and ICAO and IATA for being very supportive, including TIACA and all the other representative bodies for, you know, for lobbying airports and governments so that they understood what was happening and the differences between cargo and passenger transportation. So I think they all did a great job, and it proves that things can be done much quicker and you don't have to have as many administrative blockers as we had in the industry before.
Absolutely. True. Yeah.
So now what I'd like to ask you, you mentioned something there about the reduction in availability of cargo options. And now with the, you know, with the practical sizing that carriers have had to make and, you know, reducing schedules, and with the expected second wave coming, are you looking at specific charters now yourselves as an option?
I think we will always, or we are always looking into options and how to optimize our service portfolio for our customers and for ourselves to be more efficient. If you now look into the available space, for sure, question is, how will you ensure in near and midterm future that you still have the capacity to uplift all of your customer needs and cargo? So yes, of course, we were always discussing how we can satisfy this additional maybe capacity need that might be in the market. But on the other side, you always need to be careful as well that you are not over-committing and then at the end ending up with a lot of capacity that you are not filling.
Yeah, no, exactly. So an awful lot of analysis and forecast has to go into it. Now, I've spoken to lots of airports, and a couple in that come to mind, Leipzig and Pittsburgh. They were talking about, you know, the way they've managed to be able to change things and become more cargo friendly, and that the freight forwarding community was seeing them as, you know, realistic alternatives because they were in essence a cargo focused airport. Are you also now looking at, you know, who was cargo focused before, who's got the capabilities as things build up again, and what type of alliance and strategy and efficiencies, especially with the fact that so many people don't need to be working directly on an airport or close to it? Are you guys looking at what's going to be the next phase now as we come out of this crisis?
I think as long as you're not really running your own operations, so you're not really leasing an entire aircraft for a longer period,
yeah,
you are quite limited in your options. So whenever you are still just chartering one aircraft rotation, or let's say one leg, or a round trip a week, or a couple of round trips a week, then you still rely on the airline that you lease the aircraft from, what alternative options they can offer you. So for sure we are looking into the destinations that best fit us, but it is always in relation with the airline whether it's possible or not. So we see a certain movement nevertheless in recent months towards airports that are cargo friendly, I would say, or freighter friendly, in continental Europe. So specifically Liège, I would mention there, Hahn as well, where you see a lot of rotations going into, and a quick turnaround being possible there as well, and you get the cargo out of the airport pretty quickly as well.
Yeah, Liège has grown in stature and capability. Yep. I think Stephen is very happy with what's going on there, even though he's in Hong Kong, but I'm sure he's very, very pleased. Now, talking about airports, I've also spoken, and I've tried to ascertain whether or not airports should actually be taking more of a influencing role in that relationship. So they look after their own ecosystem and they've got their own community. And I'm thinking that they could have a lot more influence and shall we say positive pressure on the community as to what should be a code of conduct or a code of practice at that particular airport, which would then market the airport collectively in the eyes of the carriers. Do you think there's some mileage in that, Marcel?
Difficult to answer, Chris. I would say yes and no. I would say no when it comes to airlines that are still heavily relying on the passenger side. Because I think there, the passenger flow will determine where this airline is flying into. And I doubt, for example, that we just talked about Liège, but that Liège will in Europe midterm become a huge passenger hub. I won't see. I mean, you have the passenger hubs in mid-Europe, Frankfurt, Amsterdam, Paris, London. So I think there you are limited. So on that side, it's a no, I think, where the passenger side is still ruling where the aircraft is going. It's a yes more on the side when it's more freighter related or cargo related, and the cargo side will determine where to go. Then I think yes, it could be really a factor that airports are enabling or are providing an ecosystem and an infrastructure that is giving all of the players that are using the airport a competitive advantage.
Yep.
Specifically when it comes to efficiency.
Yeah, that's exactly it. Yeah, and especially when you look at some airports traditionally, you know, the congestion and the problems, and it's never going to get better. So there needs to be an alternative or a different discipline.
Yeah. So I thought about it a lot when we had the first talks and when you invited me to join the session. I had again some thoughts about whenever I joined these sessions in the past, what we discussed, and you remember as well, and we always kind of complained that year after year we are always more or less crunching the same stuff, and we are not really seeing a lot of progress. And we talked a lot about standards, and I thought again standards, and in the meantime I think maybe it's not about standards. Maybe we need to get rid of standards, and we don't need to pursue standards any longer because it's not happening. I think it's really now about players in this chain doing something that increases efficiency, specifically then, lowering cost.
Yeah.
And maybe then as well giving us a higher quality, and with their own benefit, producing something the rest of the players will enjoy some benefits out of as well. And I think this is more the way forward, because I think the standards, we talk about standards for, I'm in the industry now 25 years. Since 25 years, nothing or not that much has happened. So I think we need to think a bit differently about where we really want to invest, what we really need, and where we are striving towards. Because at the end, I think we don't produce products, but we produce a service. And because there are so many partners or players in our service offering, all these players involved in the chain, that the chain becomes quite intransparent.
Yep.
Or replaceable. So the players inside the chain are replaceable, and even most of the players don't have a real influence of other players that are involved. So if I'm as a forwarder, if I pick an airline, I cannot influence who is the ground handling agent of this airline. So I buy more or less the package. And with this, I think it's that there is only little incentive to really drive investments. And now with COVID-19, I think investments are even more complicated to get because the cost pressure, I mean, you read it in the paper every day.
Yeah.
Cost pressure in the aviation or aerospace industry is heavily on. So yeah, I think the real thing we should look into is investments that are small and drive efficiency.
Yeah.
And bring costs down.
Yeah, no, I can see where you're coming from. And the one thing that this crisis is doing now is it's making everybody focus on, get rid of all that legacy waste, projects that weren't bringing anybody anywhere, things that were using up too much people's time, etc. Get rid of it all now. And it's all about cash flow now, but it's also about immediate impact and having business continuity and sustainability and being capable of agility and resilient.
Yeah.
I think people need to see now that for every penny, dollar, euro, whatever you want to call it, that they spend, they want to see immediate impact. They want to see immediate benefits. Then that sort of investment will continue. But all the waste, and there's been a huge amount of waste, Marcel, as you know, that needs to be moved. Now, on that subject matter, okay, and with digitization being something that, as an industry, we haven't exactly kept up with the pace. On the digitization subject, and something that, like yourself, I've been to so many conferences, I've had meetings, I've had people saying, we're going to do this, we're going to do that, all related to the e-airwheel or reducing documentation. If ever there's a catalyst now to do it, it's because of the hygiene element. Why is there so many touch points with physical documentation and the interface that causes between individuals with potential infection, etc.? Surely now the community collectively from this hygiene argument can turn around and say, we do not need all this reliance on documentation. So whether it's blue ink because a customs authority wants it in one country, or 5 copies or 3 copies in another, we've got to stop all that, surely.
Yeah, I'm fully with you, and of course I think, and all the other forwarders would fully support this, because I think we are all ready, and we are producing all our documents. We are having all the papers in an electronic form already, but still, I think we have players in the chain that are not ready, and these players play a certain way, and we cannot ignore them. I mean, first and foremost are, of course, government agencies like customs. And as long as they demand having papers, we cannot just, say we will not produce papers any longer. So I think it's a lot depends on the governments moving into a paperless environment as well and accepting non-papers. And then, as well, I mean, if it comes to routing of cargo, you are not sure whether you are only touching countries that are okay with no paper, because the airline might reroute.
Yep.
And then all of a sudden you end up in a country that still demands paper, and you haven't produced the paper, so the cargo is stuck there. So this is the reason, more or less, why all our shipments still have more or less 2 sets. One set is paperless and sent over digitally to the airline, and the other one is the paper pouch. So,
which is, for whatever reasons, it's ludicrous in this day and age.
Absolutely.
And now, Marcel, now that people are starting to focus on collaboration and initiatives, and they're also all being hit by the practical sizing element, every representative body and regulatory body, they're also now losing expertise, having to reduce costs, etc. So I think surely this is a time now for them to collaborate and identify what are the most critical benefits to the industry, and all agree and focus on those critical areas rather than all the other administrative and ongoing issues. So I think there's an opportunity if everybody starts to voice that particular demand and support.
Yeah, and sure, Chris, yes, absolutely. And I think there again, we have our most probably organizations or committees like IATA, TIACA, and all of these kinds that now need to continue pressing into this direction as well. So we were quite successful in in the slot regulations and,
Yep.
and all the other stuff. So maybe now, of course, we need to continue via these channels to influence governments further.
100%, 100%. Now, on the so shall we say, the digitization and the change and the relationship opening up, you mentioned earlier about the fact that a shipper, through a tender process or relationship process, issues a contract to the forwarder. The forwarder then chooses an airline. The airline then chooses a handling agent, et cetera, et cetera. Now, surely there should be more upstream choice from the shipper as to what the minimum prerequisites are with the effectiveness, or using the word that you said we need to get away from, performance standards and capability, to ensure the integrity of their shipments all the way through, so that it can't be influenced by somebody who makes a decision of a carrier, and then because of the rates, etc., the carrier then has to save costs and then puts pressure on the GHAs, etc. Surely that upstream from the origins or the consignee side of things should be a more influential decision-making capability.
Yeah, but I mean, if you see how this works in practice, then you have to see that normally we are in kind of long-term agreements with our shippers. Normally, you have at least half-year contracts, if not a year or even 2-year contracts.
Yeah.
And I would assume same is true for the carriers with their ground handling agents. I would assume that these are at least 1 or 2-year contracts as well. So whenever you have running into an RFQ with a shipper, then normally there is a certain minimum or certain requirement level that you need to fulfill. This is normally the transit time window.
Yep.
And a certain quality level that you need to assure. But it's not common, I would say, that then the airline is dictated as well. So then still we as a forwarder have the freedom to select the right airline based on whatever requirements were raised before and what is fitting into the transport time window. Of course, I mean, we have to face as well, even if you have maybe one preferred airline, that airline might not be available every day, or it might be fully booked.
Right.
So,
Right.
so you need to have alternative airlines there as well. And with that, you need to go into different relationships with ground handling agents as well. So you might see at the end various ground handling agents because they belong to the airline. So I agree that there should be more choice or freedom of choice upstream. But I think in reality, we are bound to contracts, and yeah, we are facing then a different reality than we maybe would see that would be nice for us. So.
Yeah. And as far as those relationships are concerned, the link between the forwarder is with the carrier, and then the carrier is with the GHA. Now,
Absolutely.
do you think there's room to have sort of like side contracts or SLAs or agreements with the respective GHAs so that certain dynamics could be covered quicker and more beneficial to the overall supply chain?
I don't know whether this is feasible. You know, I mean, okay, it's always feasible, and you can always have certain SLAs in place with the ground handling agent. But then the question is, you would then most probably need to pay for this. And with this, the question is as well, you are still bound to the airline. If the airline is then changing the GSA, then you have a problem, because then all of a sudden you have another handling agent that's involved.
Yeah.
So in practice, service level agreements normally we do with the airline, and then the airline needs to impose this onto the ground handling, and not directly with the ground handling agent. I mean, in certain airports, it might be possible, it might make sense, where you only have limited ground handling agents working. But of course, if we look now into airports, there is a certain tendency that airports try getting more and more ground handling agents on.
Yeah.
Okay, it might not be feasible for them surviving, so then you have the reduction of ground handling agents as well, but it's this growing and minimizing again. So yeah, I mean, for sure we would be open, absolutely. But I don't know whether this is then really feasible or whether there's a real impact.
Yeah.
Because at the end, we are booking with the airline certain stuff.
Exactly.
And the airline is fulfilling then whatever we booked.
Yeah. What I'm thinking of is, you know, the sort of tripartite communications and finger pointing that normally takes place if something goes wrong or if something is necessary. you've got one discussion between the forwarder and the carrier, then you've got another discussion between the carrier and the GHA. And then when it comes to reality, the understanding and appreciation and deliverables between the forwarder and the GHA are a little bit different to what was expected. Yeah. So, you know, having that freedom or that extra capacity to deal directly, whether it's to do with KPIs, slots, milk runs, whatever it is.
So we are talking to ground handling agents, of course, as well. And we are always happy to, if anyone is approaching us, asking for some advice or some talks, absolutely, we're absolutely open. But then in real, normally we have an agreement with the airline.
Yeah, exactly, yeah. It's just ways of making things, you know, possibly more efficient and more transparent and open. And with digitization and, you know, various forecasting and simulations and data, you know, you can make a better decision-driven, yes, you know, final decision based on good quality data.
I think it's a bit, as I mentioned before, I think on the ground handling agent side or the airport side, I would look into certain things that would benefit all my clients, not only airlines, but the forwarders as well.
Yeah.
And invest into these things, small investments that would really provide all of the clientele of airlines and of forwarders a certain benefit. So one example could be Bluetooth devices. So we're always talking about Cargo IQ Phase 3, real-time tracking and monitoring. And of course, we as Kuehne have a certain interest in getting to know how is our cargo doing, where is our cargo, and how is it doing, what is the condition.
Exactly.
So we really struggle in getting data out. So the current devices that have the ability to send information themselves are quite expensive still.
Yep.
Because of this, all the algorithms and the intelligence that they need to shut down when they are inside the aircraft and so on, and the sensors are not cheap, and then you have the battery, you have the lithium-ion story anyhow in the back, so we need to look into alternative power modes. And so if you have a certain investments, I think they are pretty small, from an airport or a GHA saying, okay, I installed in my warehouse, let's say Bluetooth device, and that could be simple smartphones with a data plan, and they would empower, or they would be open for all cargo that is coming in. That is something that adds efficiency, because with one go, you will cut all the phone calls. How is my cargo doing? Where's my cargo? What happened to my cargo? So this is one of the examples that I think the investment is quite small. The impact would be huge, because we would all gain from this, and it would even increase efficiency and bring costs down at the airport or handling agent, which could then result into lower fees they want to or they need to get from the airline to survive.
Yeah. No, I agree. So like a community facility that's got a plug and play benefit, that's definitely what's needed, which is part of the digitization, which is why we need to speed up and start getting things moving. Now, we got another, in my opinion, and I'm no expert, and some people would say I'm not an expert in anything, but as far as my perception, the next 5 to 7 months are going to be so critical. A second wave, in whatever form it's going to come, and also the different ways we're going to have to adapt. There's going to be more practical sizing, more liquidity problems. There's going to be an awful lot of solidarity that's required from the industry to get through. Now, as a result of that, one of the things that's going to be a big ticket item, and everybody started to talk about it now, including IATA, is the vaccines. So people are looking at what happened with PPE. They're now looking at whether or not there's clarification as to whether it's going to be deep frozen, whether it's going to be certain temperature ranged. But whatever happens, they're not sure now of the overall capability in airports or any other mediums of transport, but they're not sure of the capability. Now, community-wise, airports, carriers, GHAs, and forwarders are going to have to collectively put themselves forward, because it's so important to gauge what the capabilities are. Now, that's going to be so critical. Now, I know that you guys, and especially, and I spoke to you about an article where I had a statement from, and excuse me again, Ingvar Ruud. What he actually said was, today, new pharma and healthcare products tend to be more valuable, more temperature sensitive, and have additional requirements for storage and transportation conditions. Very, 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 very true. Such capabilities and facilities are not easily available globally. The new hubs, your own hubs in Brussels and Joburg, will ensure that your pharma and healthcare customers can fully rely on Kuehne Nagel to handle the specific challenges of integrity, as well as provide end-to-end visibility and regulatory compliance along the logistics journey of their very sensitive products, so that they can focus on the health and well-being of their patients, because this is what matters the most. Now, with something like vaccine, and IATA quite rightly focused on the capability of storage, distribution, just-in-time support, but also security, Marcel, because the security of these vaccines is going to be extreme, especially when they first come out. So now you as an organization, you've invested, you've got 90 plus CEIV, CXP, GDP, certified or accredited facilities. You've done a very special arrangement with IATA, whereby IATA has recognized your capability with all of your facilities. Now, with that in mind, are you guys now getting involved with governing bodies or organizations that are looking at the overall capability when it comes to vaccines?
Yeah, definitely we are. I mean, for sure, you touched one of the hottest topics, I think, at the moment that we are discussing internally as well. So Ingvar is our board member for Air Logistics.
Yeah.
He's EVP for Air Logistics, so he's my boss. And this was one of his quotes when we just now opened last week our new pharma hub in Brussels and then the one in Johannesburg. These pharma hubs in Brussels and Johannesburg, they provide airside access. And this is already one thing that is quite special. And when you talk about security and stability, I think this helps already. So we can pick up the cargo at the aircraft on the tarmac and bring it immediately into our conditioned warehouse facilities. When we now talk about the COVID-19 vaccine and the challenges, then I think we of course try to get a better picture of what is really required. So we try talking to governments, and we are in discussions with a couple of. Some others do not want to discuss this topic with us, but the ones who are, we get a certain picture. But what we get is, and that's the reason why we mostly talk to shippers.
Yeah.
So to the vaccine producers, and we try to figure out what will the vaccine require. So what is the requirement for transportation? What is the amounts we are talking about? Where will you produce the vaccine? So what is a possible lane or possible distribution pattern? And there, I think information is still quite fragmented. So whether at the end, a couple of these vaccines that hit the market require -60, I don't know. I mean, I think we at the moment think that the majority of the vaccines hitting the market will require 2 to 8, like normal vaccines we are seeing as well. We think as well that there will be a global production of vaccines. So you will have facilities, or a facility at least, in the US, in Europe, in India, most probably in China as well. And we heard that Brazil is now starting or ramping up production facility as well, which means that I think at least within Europe, within India, and within the US, you could say that these are distributions that will happen overland. And then we need to see what is left over that really needs to fly and from where to where. Yeah. We are less concerned about the current supply chain we normally talk about. So let's say shipper, forwarder, airline, handling agent, airport. I think we can manage this, and I think we are all alerted, and I think we are all setting up the things as best as we can, and hopefully we get more information as well, understanding better what we need. current understanding is as well that governments will take over at destination, and the government will organize the vaccination. So this means for us as well, this famous last mile, and there I would personally see the biggest challenge at the moment, that if really a vaccine would hit the market in Africa or South America or somewhere where you don't have the capabilities of really providing 2 to 8 or -18 or -60, and you then need to go to last mile, then of course there might be trouble. But at the moment, as it looks like, these are government things that the government would take over and would need to organize. And I just hope that these governments are aware of this.
Yeah.
They're preparing themselves and they can organize it. So, so from our side, I think for the air logistics industry, I think we are prepared because we know what will come. And there might be, depending on the lanes that are requested, there might be certain capacity shortages, but I think as well, we can overcome them because we will find solutions to route the cargoes from somewhere else or to somewhere else and then do the trucking or whatsoever.
Exactly. I think it's going to be one of the most important and one of the most high-profile logistics exercises that's going to hit everybody's newspapers, the news programs, and the fact that it needs to be done correct is also going to be an incentive to get the discipline of the whole process right. So we also know that, if one part of the supply chain lets it down or breaks it, it can actually, neutralize the benefit of any vaccine or any pharmaceutical product. So I think it's going to be a huge learning, but a huge collaborative and focused exercise. So touch wood, and there's plenty of it up here. Please God, it'll work well. And I know how much you and your organisation have invested in it. There's one thing that I've found out as well about Kuehne Nagel. Most of you senior guys have got names that are very difficult to pronounce. So it's very, very hard to keep references.
You see that we're a global forwarder?
Oh, you're certainly global, all right, Marcel. Whether it's Marcel Fujike or Ingvar, very, very difficult. Yeah. For somebody that's used to Mr. Smith and Mr. Jones, it's
a Norwegian name, so Ingvar's from Norway. So.
No, but well done. Now, just coming to an end, before I ask you a couple of questions, what would you say is the biggest beneficial or learning exercise that you, in your own position and your organisation, have come to now as a result of the experience of this crisis?
Well, I think it wasn't a relearning. I think it was a reaffirmation that whatever we believed before, that our industry, especially our people, are so dedicated to solution findings and to the customer focus, that finding solutions even in the weirdest situations and sitting at home with 5 kids around day and night 24/7, people that needed to work at the ground, at the airport, in warehouses, they all did their job. They all performed tremendously well. So I think this was, again, a reaffirmation that our industry is a great industry. So it's one of the sexiest industries, if you want, so you can be in, and we make things happen. And this, I think, I knew before, but this was, of course, a hefty reaffirmation that this really is the case.
Yeah, exactly. And I think it also emphasizes how committed and well structured the aviation family is. And
absolutely.
It's such a shame now that so many people are going to be displaced through no fault of their own, other than the practical side. And so I think we need to make sure that we keep in touch with them for whatever way, and that we bring them back into the aviation family as soon as possible.
I think cooperation has been great. Creativity was for sure there as well. And yes, I'm with you. Whenever the industry recovers, and hopefully there will be rather sooner than later, we need to bring people back on board that are in the industry already, that know the industry, that have been trained in the industry, and that are then needed again. So.
Yeah. Yeah, and if there's any way we can keep them updated and trained or informed or give them access to information so that they don't feel as if they've been left out, that will be better as well. So I think that's something to think about. Now, Marcel, coming to the end of the session, as I've done with everybody else, I'd just like to ask you 3 things that you, in your position, your company would commit to support the collaboration and initiative framework, and 3 things that you'd like to see coming from the rest of the supply chain to make your lives more effective and more beneficial. So the 3 things that you would commit to firstly.
I think they are linked together, Chris. So whatever I would commit to, I would like to see coming from the industry as well.
Makes sense.
So I think the first one would again be, I mean, we have an initiative called eTouch. So we want to move away from manually touching files or manually producing touch points. So all these touch points to customers, but as well to suppliers, should be digital in the future.
Yeah.
And when we talked about this, like Bluetooth transmitting devices, so I would like to see that parties involved in the chain are moving into this direction of investing little money, but with high impact.
Yeah.
And of course, our commitment from our side or my side is then, of course, whenever this comes, we'll fully support it and we use it. So we are trialing already technology. We have these on hand. We have the commitment as well that we are saying our target is that each piece moving within KN through the chain will be real-time monitored. So whenever somebody is helping us in producing this, we will fully support this, because this is our commitment that every piece should be monitored, and we should at every point in time know the condition of the piece.
Yeah, agreed. Lovely. And
then we can move further, still staying digital, connectivity.
Yeah.
I think we need to invest more into a more modern way of connectivity, which is normally APIs and not these EDI messages any longer, where you don't know whether they were received or not. So an API is giving you a response as well.
Yeah.
And apps, I think we should use as well. So when I think about the manual condition sheets, and Chris, you talked about moving into the digital world and not touching things any longer because of hygiene as well. So this is one thing as well where I would see that there is a chance of getting rid of paper and touching.
Yeah.
These are all these condition check sheets and so on. So all these check sheets you're having flying around between forwarders and the airline and the ground handling agent and the airport or whomever, we could digitalize. And we are using, or we produced an app, for example, in our house, in-house, that we are now using for the entire move of engines, aircraft engines.
Okay. Right.
Whenever a trucker picks up the engine, he has the app on his smartphone, and there is a checklist, and he completes the checklist. And he can even send pictures or videos, or he can even call in a help desk asking for advice when something is looking not as it should be. And we have this throughout the route. So there is something for pickup, for then the transiting into our warehouse, the handover to the airline warehouse, and so on. So these are things that I would ask the industry moving into. And of course, when anyone likes to see what we have, we are happy to share what we developed, and are happy to share as well our knowledge and skills in this respect.
No, that's good, and it's a transparency that's necessary.
Yeah, and last but not least, so the third thing, so 3 things. The third thing for us is sustainability.
Yep.
Even with COVID-19, it was for us a huge topic before.
Yep.
COVID-19 hit us, and it still is. So we committed ourselves and to the outside world that by 2020 we are scope 1 and 2 carbon neutral, and we will do this.
Right.
And by 2030 we are scope 3 carbon neutral. So scope 3 means all our suppliers are carbon neutral as well. So this means as well that either we get our airlines into carbon neutrality, or even carbon avoidance.
Yeah.
Or we somehow need to do the offsetting or the reduction. And there I miss at the moment, okay, understandably maybe as well, but from the airline side, but maybe as well, ground handling agents and airports can have some thoughts there as well. But what we could do
Exactly.
moves into this direction. So I started or kicked off first discussions into sustainable aviation fuel.
Yeah.
There you find out that it's quite expensive. So it's 2.7 times more expensive than fossil fuel, so than kerosene.
Yeah.
And it's only limited available in the market. But I think there we need to have a joint effort as well from all of us, convincing shippers as well that we need to move into this direction, that we need to foster the requirements for SAF, for sustainable aviation fuel, to bring more SAF onto the market with increased demand. And this would, of course, then decrease the price.
Yeah, exactly. And I think one of the things that you touched on there about the carbon offsetting. So from an airport community, I think there's going to be a lot more focus now, not just on carbon neutrality, but also the offsetting options that people could actually show. And I think that's where the balance and the gap can be made a lot quicker.
So from commitment from our side is, of course, whatever is there. I mean, we are fully committed to net zero carbon, to the offsetting, or first avoidance, reduction, and then offsetting. Yeah. So we for sure are a very, very open partner when it comes to this, and we would support this fully as well, and even push it. We are now starting in 2020. So for the entire year of 2020, we will offset our entire online bookings that are done by MyKN Quote and Book, by our former called FreightNet tool, KN FreightNet. Yeah. We offset all these bookings by our customers on our own. So KN is offsetting all these bookings that are coming online into our system, not only on the air freight, but on the sea freight and overland side as well.
Very good, very good. So you're keeping busy, Marcel, as always, my friend.
Always, yes. Need to be.
Yeah.
Otherwise, I'm even looking better, and I need to avoid that one. So
exactly. Well, I'll tell you what. As I'm getting older, you look like you're getting younger. So we definitely got to have a chat offline, my friend. And I also like the fact that your backdrop is completely neutral. No signage, no branding, no logo, no affiliation.
It is.
The choice is very open. Huh?
I'm not sure it is, but I thought it's an air cargo handling conference, so I wanted to have, at least in my background, something that is close to handling. So
yeah, no, very, very impressed. Well done, Marcel. As always, my friend, it's always nice to speak with someone who's as committed and genuinely transparent, and always with a smile on their face. So thank you so much for joining us. Really appreciate it.
Thanks for your time.
Thank you.
Take care. Huh? Stay healthy.
You too. Cheers.
Keep in touch. Ciao.